Hey friends, good morning. Mario Cavallo here with Counterpoint Global. One of the dumbest and common arguments that I hear to try and criticize the Chinese government is by the proof that when people get a lot of money, when Chinese get a lot of money, they want to transfer their money out of the country and get out of there. And that's proof that China's bad, the Chinese government policies are bad. No, but it is proof of something very, very important. What is that? The Chinese government governs China for the masses of people and society. The US government governs the country for the elites, for the corporate behemoths, for the billionaires, for Wall Street, in cahoots with the Fed. And that's why, if you're rich, you want to get your money into the United States. In the United States, you have a Wild West Wall Street. You can make millions upon billions. Corporate behemoths who are making record-breaking profits aren't rewarding their 150,000 employees by giving them bigger bonuses for Christmas and New Year at the end of the year. They're laying them off. So you're a company that wants to be greedy. You're a company owner that's worth $5 billion and wants to become worth $10 billion. Or you're a company owner or CEO or one of the elites, a chairman of the board, the board of directors. You all hold 1 million shares of the stock and you're all worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And what you want as a shareholder is more hundreds of millions of dollars. You're not satisfied that if you're Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or any of these other guys, Sam Altman, you're not satisfied that you're already worth $100 billion, let alone $500 billion. You've got the entire United States government and media complex cheering you on to become worth $1 trillion. So yeah, of course, if you're an elite and rich and want to get richer, you want to get out of the United States, get out of China and into the United States, because that financial ecosystem very much supports your interests as a guy with hundreds and hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Now, oh, and by the way, what I just said is not in any way, shape, or form my rhetorical commentary. I make an effort when I make my videos to not express my personal opinion or view about things. What I'm describing to you, you might love it. What I'm describing to you about the way the United States government and its behemoth corporations and the Fed together and Wall Street together and the big banks together operate, you may love it. You may hate it. I'm just describing what it is. Okay, so what I've just described to you is not a rhetorical personal opinion. The United States government listens to its billionaires, and its policies are dictated by what its billionaire elites want and need. And Wall Street does that. They kowtow to that. The government kowtows to that. Policies are written for that. You have lobbyists in Washington who pay millions of dollars to your congressman and Senate for influence. It's legal corruption. Again, okay, I'm just describing it. What I just described is clear. Now, in case you still think I'm making a rhetorical commentary video here, it's not. You don't have to believe me. You can believe the Gillen Page Princeton University study, which was actually even back 12 years ago in 2014, which clearly identified that U.S. government policy is for the elites, and what the interests and needs and preferences of the people are 5 million people out protesting the war, or any other policies, are completely, like, to the point of almost near zero, ignored. What the people need and want, the people's preferences on how they want the country to be, is ignored. This was the Princeton study. But what the elites need and corporations need and want, that's what the United States government builds its policy around. Do you understand? Okay, now this Princeton study. Okay, so again, not my personal opinion. Okay, so I'm just establishing the foundational facts of the situation. Contrast that to China. Again, yeah, if you got $1 billion and you're thinking you want to be able to do something with it, okay, that's not China's priority. Ask Jack Ma. You see, now Alibaba's not doing bad, but see, Jack Ma wanted to do a banking thing back in the West. He wanted to join the Wall Street game, and he wanted Alibaba to be a part of that. You understand? And the Chinese government went, you got where you are, Mr. Ma, because of us. Alibaba exists because of us. We were part of building you up to become Alibaba, to serve the country and to serve the people, to serve the society. So, and now you want to go and make billions overseas in the West, and they put the kibosh on it. They called Jack Ma into the office and went, you're not doing that. Okay. Why do you have a problem with that? Why would you try to portray that as being oppression? No, it's definitely not good for the billionaires. Correct. It's not good for the billionaires. Okay? It's good for what the overall economy and society need. The common people, which is the lower income people and the middle income people. Now, if you were the government of China, why would you perhaps have that set of priorities? After all, as someone reminded me earlier, it is called the People's Republic of China. Okay, whereas the United States of America is not called the People's United States of America. Okay, you might as well call it the Elites United States of America, because again, that's how it really and truly is governed. The policies are clear. But the People's Republic of China party, the CPC, governs the country exactly for what's in the name of the country, the people. Okay. Now, we can ask, why would they do that? Because there's 1.4 billion people? That's a pretty good reason. Okay, so could you imagine being responsible for 1.4 billion people and having government policies that exist for the 200 million elites that exist in the country? Super wealthy, the uber wealthy. Not a good way to govern a country with 1.4 billion people. Look at India, another country with 1 billion people. Now really, truly, with 1 billion people there living in, pretty gross squalor. You have nothing like that here in China. Okay? You have a very small percentage of people living in such squalor. Okay? You've eliminated poverty here in China. So then what do you have? You have, in China, I'll give you the breakdown of the population. Forgive me, I might not be quite accurate on. No, I'm accurate on this. In China, you have 700 million, that's half the population, who are countryside elite, countryside low-income people. They are the farming community. They are in the townships, which are 5th and 4th tier cities, and they are in the 3rd and 2nd tier cities. Now, keep in mind, a 3rd tier city in China, this is not, like some small American city, 30,000, 100,000 people. Even a 3rd tier smaller city in China is still like 1 million to 2 million people. but they're all at the merchant economy level. You understand, here in China, you see apartment complexes all around, like where I am in my garden now, and I'm surrounded by 6 32-story buildings. And along the bottom of all the buildings all around me, on the outside, on the commercial side, is endless merchant shops, family-owned businesses. This is the heart of China's consumer economy, okay? These are the people that is Chinese government's greatest concern. So again, out in the countryside, they're the farmers. There's, I don't know, say 500 million of those. And then another 200 million are in the townships and 5th and 4th and 3rd tier cities, running their small businesses. Okay, that's who these people are. All right, they're on what we call low income. And they are on low income. There's no doubt about that. Okay, so because they're on low income, all right, they're the priority. The Chinese government needs to keep health care as low as possible. That's why here in China, I also use the universal health care system that they have here. You know, my annual premium for universal health care is $75 a year. And when I go to the hospital, I pay $1.50 to see a doctor, and I see the doctor immediately. And when I need an x-ray, I pay $10. And if I happen to need more advanced diagnostics like a CT scan, you pay about $50. Okay? So, because it has to remain affordable for people who are lower income. So now you're going, well, yeah, they're lower income. They're only making $500 a month. Okay, yeah. But again, if I offered you a job making $3,000 a month, but your rent was $1,000 and your monthly insurance premium bill is $500 and you must own a car, so you have a $300 car payment, oops, you see the problem? And when you go to the doctor, it's $75 just to see the doctor. You see the problem? I offer you a job back in America, and it's a medium low income, you know, middle, what do we call it? A minimum wage, and so say it's close to maybe $3,000 a month, and at the end of the month you have absolutely no money. I'll offer you a better deal. A simple life where how about, listen, just go ahead and keep doing your thing, but I'm going to give you a straight $500 a month, and you don't have any expenses, or your expenses are $100 a month. Huh? $100 a month. Okay. So you are only making $500 a month, but you're actually putting $400 a month in the bank. So choose. You see? I mean, this is the reality of the situation here in China. Okay. Now let's move it on up into the urban population. Because I said 700 million people are pretty much 700 million people who are out in the countryside and in the smaller townships. Okay, they call them townships. So if they're not farmers, they're in the farming equipment business. You know, they sell fertilizer, they sell the equipment needed for the farms. They're merchants, they own a business, they sell commercial plumbing equipment, for example. That, you know, all the things that you need to operate your businesses, right? Now, let's jump to the next group of people. The next group of people are the other 700 million people, and all of them are now urbanized. In fact, it's over 50%, the urbanization, everyone living now in China's cities. These people live in China's 3rd tier cities, China's 2nd tier, and 1st tier cities. So these people live in Guangzhou, Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing. And then the 2nd tier cities, which they call them 1st tier cities, like where I live, is Shenyang, Dalian, Zhengzhou, Wuhan, Chongqing, Chengdu, Tianjin, and a bunch of other cities that are in that 2nd category. Now, all of these cities have like 10 million plus people. Okay. And 1st and 2nd tier cities. But then you have 3rd tier cities. Okay, these are still really, really big cities. Okay, let me think of a couple of quick examples. Changchun, Ningbo, sort of like Qinshan outside of Shanghai. I can't think of the name of it right now. Yangzhou, Shangrao. These are third tier cities. They're still really big cities. They're still like 2 to 5 million people. Okay, so this is your urban China people. Now again, the vast majority of these people have their merchant business shops, family-owned individual businesses. Some of them are doing very well. They don't only just have this little Aunt Jenny's tea shop. They own 10 Aunt Jenny's tea shops. Okay, and they're doing pretty well. So these, and then the rest of China's middle class, 700 million urbanized people, have jobs. Okay. In the second and third tier cities, those jobs pay anywhere on average from $500 to $1,000 a month. In the first tier cities, in the better jobs, they pay anywhere from $1,000 to almost $3,000 a month. Let's say 7,000 RMB a month in salary, up to many people in the comfortable middle class in China many people are earning $2,000 to $3,000 a month. Okay, which is 1.5到2万, so for 15,000 to 20,000 a month, or even a bit more. Okay, now you're moving into a smaller portion of the population. You're down to now maybe 20% of the population. Okay, and we move into the upper middle income people. These are people with really good jobs with the top companies, excellent successful businesses. So I estimate here in China, of these 700 million urbanized people, and by the way, I was saying this back in 2014 when I wrote my first book on China, that about 200 million, I'm going to expand it to 300 million, of China's population, households, are making very good money, and I call them very comfortable middle class to upper middle class. That's about 200 to 300 million people of the 700 million urbanized people. That population alone is the size of the almost the size of the entire United States population. So you see the enormous responsibility that the government of China has here to all of those people, the people of the Republic of China, the People's Republic of China. And the government's like, yeah, the government here is beholden to them and their preferences, wants, and needs, not beholden to the billionaires. Thus, the billionaires here are at a disadvantage here in China. Yes, they are. You're right about that. But your argument that the billionaire people, as soon as people get a lot of money, they want to leave China, and that's proof because the place sucks. That's your argument that I've just shown you is a dead fish. It's a stupid, ignorant, shallow, narrow argument with no basis whatsoever. Okay. China's government wants to make sure that its 200 million upper middle class and 500 million comfortable middle class, who are all living in the urban cities, are comfortable. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Okay, I'm really comfortable, and the reason I'm really comfortable is because our mother-in-law, who's elderly, we needed to move her closer to live near us because she's getting elderly and we need to care for her. This is practical, common daily life interests and needs. Take care of your family, right? Right. Well, guess what? We had to buy a local one-bedroom apartment for her here instead of her living back in her other old apartment she'd been in for many years, because it was 14 kilometers away. And now she lives right next door, 40 meters away, in the building next door, and we paid less than $60,000 for a beautiful 700 square foot, one-bedroom, modern city apartment. Well, thank you very much. Because again, Oh, the Chinese government collapsed the real estate economy. Thank you. Yeah, I got to buy a one-bedroom apartment for only less than $60,000. Okay? You see? Yeah. The Chinese government made sure that people who are middle class, who aren't ever going to become super rich or upper middle class and very comfortable, can afford to buy a home for their families. That is by policy what the Chinese government did. That is by policy why the real estate market has declined. It's absolutely true. You're absolutely right. That is what they chose to do by policy. The United States government, along with Wall Street and the Fed, chose to inflate the real estate market by policy. It was by policy. The Chinese government could do the exact same thing in the monetary system. They could follow that same model and inflate everything. But you understand that what they did is, in the United States, by choosing that financial policy model, is benefit the top 10% of the society and screw the 90%. That's the difference between the policy. So I'm done. I'm wrapping it up. I'm sure you got my point. The United States government governs for the 10%. The Chinese government governs for the people, for the 90%. That's it. Okay? But for you to try and couch that into that's the proof that the Chinese government is bad. I mean, this is like a joke. I mean, how can anybody respect you for such stupidity and ignorance for making such a shallow argument? That's it, friends. Subscribe to Counterpoint Global. Follow me on Twitter, and hope you have a great day. Catch you later.